Hi everyone, this is Dr. Catherine Kelly, and I know that amongst the 80 million people who tuned into the debate a couple nights ago, that you probably, if you didn't watch it, you probably have heard about it and or trying to avoid it for all I know. But I wanted to throw a couple concepts out there to you about what's happening in the world in terms of our soul evolution. Now, my first book was called Soul Health Aligning with Spirit for Radiant Living. And it basically described my holistic health model, and two of the branches on that model are the social branch and the interpersonal branch. And really what's happening in our conscious world, in our evolutionary world, is that things are shifting. Things are very much shifting in terms of sense of self-worth, sense of consciousness, that sense of evolution, where we're going in life. And this election is almost the most beautiful, awful depiction of what's happening. But the way it's beautiful is that it really has to happen. And I'm going to be doing another video talking about why this election is happening and why it has to happen, why we need that example of Trump, why we need the example of Hillary right now. But that's coming. What I wanted to talk about today is this whole idea of soul age, which is really what my next book is about. So you've all heard of the term old soul, and usually in therapy sessions or workshops, I bring that term up, and then I say, think about Yoda. Yoda in Star Wars was the iconic epitome of old soul. Wise, grounded, no drama, didn't react, he responded, really knew kind of from a worldly conscious perspective what life was about. But in my world, if there's an old soul, then there's a whole spectrum down to young soul. And so I use that a lot in helping clients understand relationships, dynamics that they have with family and friends or coworkers or anybody else in the world. And I want to apply that to the election right now because it is actually a perfect application of how, when you have two soul ages that are mismatched, how much discourse can happen. And so let's talk about toddlers for a second. So anybody who has seen or been around or had a toddler in their life, they know that there's an egocentricity to them. And that egocentricity is a psychological term of one of the human developmental stages and that most psychologists and therapists learn. But that egocentricity really applies to soul age as well. And so, if you think about a toddler, that egocentricity, really, they think the world revolves around them. They feel like people are there to hurt their feelings. They don't realize that they hurt other people's feelings. They throw tantrums. They get very reactive. They don't know how to respond. So it's a very uncomfortable time for them because they're really trying to learn how to be secure in the world. And so that insecurity creates a lot of that reactivity. But then it becomes very egocentric for them. They're very, again, they don't realize their impact on the world. They don't realize that they say things that are harmful or, out of the mouth of babes. Is that one of those concepts that people talk about? It's like, well, they didn't mean it, but I want to apply that to what's happening for Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump really is in that toddler soul age. And everything he says comes out of his own insecurity. And people who work in the conscious world or live in the conscious world see that, but also want him to evolve beyond that, because if he ends up leading our country, we need something different than that. And so in my spectrum that I've created for this next book, the task for that age of the soul is learning humility. In order for them to evolve beyond that toddler stage, they have to learn humility. So all of the racism, sexism, all of the things all the isms and ists that are being portrayed through Trump are really a part of his own soul development. And really, people who are resonating with him, it's probably part of their soul development too. So I would take a look at that. Are there things that you need to work on evolving beyond that are based out of fear, based out of a need to learn humility, and based out of that insecurity? Because we need to basically look at ourselves as we're watching what's going on in the news. So then I'm going to shift to Hillary Clinton for a second. Now, in my spectrum of the souls, I have 3 different stages for an adult soul. I would say she fits in the middle adult soul. And that middle adult soul, their virtue, what they're working on is basically self-worth, working on their own pride, but basically their milestone is learning dignity. So once they learn dignity, then they move on to the next level. Now, Hillary Clinton, that's exactly what she's working on, is how to live in dignity. She, the adult souls in general can admit mistakes, can admit that they didn't do quite right everything, or do everything quite right, that they have learning to do. She has admitted that, much to, I'm sure the reason that she didn't want to is that she knew it would affect the election. But on the other hand, she has said that she's made mistakes and that she has learned from those mistakes. That's what adults do. They're able to own up eventually to their own stuff and live in that dignity. And, getting past dignity, getting past that milestone of dignity is all about getting past that sense of inferiority. And, I watch Hillary and I watch other women that are in leadership positions. And historically, women have not been allowed to be in those positions because of feeling inferior or being told they're inferior, or basically having insecurities, being dismissed, being diminished in one way or another. And so she's learning dignity. And that is her life lesson right now. So we've got this middle adult soul that's working on dignity. We've got this toddler soul that's working basically on humility. So I'm calling this the most beautiful, ugly election. And I think a lot of the reviewers are saying the same thing. They don't know what to do with this because it's such a different election. But I wanted to point those things out to help you understand that our interactions with others goes far beyond face value. And so as you're thinking about this election, and as you also think about your own life and how we have these difficulties with interpersonal relationships, maybe start considering soul age and how that affects those reactions and interactions. So I'm going to be doing another video in the not too distant future, maybe even a little bit later today if I have time, about why we need this election and why, for consciousness reasons, we need this. But in the meantime, think about soul age and how this applies to you and how this applies to what's happening in really the world, but also what's happening in this political race. Go to my website, www.drkatherineTKelly, for more information. And also, I'm going to be posting this on my YouTube page as well as other videos for Facebook, and really all about this conscious evolution place that we're in. Hope you have a wonderful day. Hang in there with the elections. And I know that as we consciously evolve one way or another, we have to be watching and going through this. Bye-bye.